Hi again. Today I would like to show you how to render an animation that you have made in Blender 2.9. This is an absolute beginner's tutorial, so the difficulty is pretty low. And yes, basically there are only a few steps you need to make in order to achieve your target, rendering your animation into a video or an image. Okay, so let's start. Alright, first of all, well, now I'm going to be showing you how to render a video, not an image, because rendering a video is much more difficult and complicated. So I think it better I'd better teach you that first. Okay. First of all, in order to render an animation or an image, Blender uses something called render engine. There are three render engines. There is Eevee, Workbench. Nobody uses Workbench because it renders things like as though you were using solid mode. Okay, so just forget about Workbench and cycles. Okay, first of all, let's talk about these engines. Well, Eevee is often used in games, if not every single time. So when somebody wants to render a game, they use Eevee. Although I'm not quite sure whether Blender can render a game, I will look it up and let you know some other time. Okay, so there is Eevee and there is cycles, which is often used in while rendering cartoons. Okay, so there are some there is there are some things you need to know. Eevee, the main characteristics of Eevee are that it has lower realism comparing it to Cycles, but very much faster rendering process. The rendering process is much uh, faster. Okay, so obviously now Cycles um, has got a higher realism, but it is very slow at rendering, and it takes time, a lot of time. Okay, so if you can see that when you choose Cycles, don't worry, these pixels aren't going to be shown in your animations. Well, one could guess that, but just to be clear, I'm just informing you. Okay, so if you use Cycles, some people choose here Cycles instead of CPU, they choose GPU compute. Um, yes, GPU compute. There are more options, but I'm not going to get more into that today. Okay, so we're going to render an animation using Eevee because we want it to be um, faster, and we don't care about the realism because it's going to be no different here. There isn't going to be much difference. They are just cubes Okay, so yes, let's go over it here, up here, rendering, and then if you don't want this icon here means that it's an image, and whereas these icons here are for represent videos. I normally use AVI, JPG. I don't know why I just do. And the default quality is 90%. So I like setting it to 100%. And this is a pretty important part. There is a file here by Blender that is the default file, but if you want it to be, if you want a specific place for your for your video to be, just go over here in 1 second. Go to desktop, tutorial, accept. Okay, and I have chosen Eevee, and just double checking. Okay, I think everything is just fine. Now we go over here to render animation. Oh, no, wait, nope. Something, I forgot something. I thought, well, it is sort of obvious, but just in case you don't know it, let me clarify it. Right. Okay, there is this thing here called camera. You can imagine what this does. If you go here, you can see whatever people will see if they watch your video. Okay, so whatever the camera sees is going to be the layout, the screen, when the animation has been turned into a video. So okay, now that I've done this, I like going here to rendering, and okay, double checking again, and render animation, and yes, so this is what it's going to look like when it's rendered. uh, you can see over here that these are the frames, and this is the preview. It will look more natural. I will show you later. And this is, yes, okay, this is how much space it consumes in your memory. um, okay, let me just yes, I will, let's make this a little bit quicker. Okay, well, there are going to be just empty frames once this is done, so I guess we could change the frames from 250 to let's say to 200, so that fewer frame, because it ends about here. And okay, and yes, now 200, but however it will continue to render until it goes up here to 250 frames, since that was the time we originally set before selecting the rendering command. Okay, so mainly what I was saying was that although I did change my end frame to 200 from 250, because my animation had ended about right here, 80. 80 frames. Okay, so let's make it 85. And okay, so now if I render it out, it will be a lot shorter, and we won't have to. There won't have to be all these blank frames with nothing to show. So that's what I was talking about. But enough about that. Enough about that though. Let's just go over here and see what we have rendered out. Okay, so yes, that ends at 250 frames, and yes, from this point on, there is nothing else, and they just sit like this. Yes. Now, if I go over here and okay, so I'll go over here and then change my frames to 85. So now if I go over here to rendering, yes, render animation, and I do this again, and just go past that. Okay, yep, I have rendered it again, and then okay, let's save this one. Yes. Okay, so now you can see that it the video ends without waiting another, I don't know how many seconds. Yes, about 4 or 5. Okay, and yes, that's pretty much it. So yes, I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment if you have any questions, or if you want to add something, or criticize anything. And yes, see you next time. Goodbye.